when you're getting that pushback, it's frustrating, really frustrating. But you need to understand that that's a signal you're actually pioneering. And when you should be nervous, I talk to companies about this all the time, is when there isn't that pushback. That means you're not pioneering enough.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Erik Jones. I'm here with Erik Qualman, renowned speaker and best-selling author. Erik, it's great to have you.
It's great to be here.
I wanted to dive right in, and like I said, you're a renowned speaker and one of the most likable authors in the world. Tell us a little bit about your organization and the key insight that led you to its creation.
So I'm the founder and owner of Erik Qualman Studios, and it started, my background's always been in digital, going back to when websites first started. So I was in Detroit, and they needed Cadillac.com, and I was the youngest guy there, so they said, hey, can you help us get it up and running? So I loved digital from the get-go, and then I wrote a book called Socialnomics back in 2009, just telling people, look, the social media activity is not just for teenagers. It's going to be for business, politics, it's going to help elections, everything. It's going to touch everything. And unfortunately, that just went gangbusters. A video I produced along with it called Social Media Revolution went viral. And then now for the last decade, I mainly write books, speak, and then we have a great animation studio called Erik Qualman Studios where we work with Disney, IBM, Cartier, big brands, helping them produce basically 2-minute videos or less.
You've articulated a series of elements that make up a person's digital reputation. What are some of the key principles that people need to keep in mind when they think about protecting their digital reputation?
When it comes to your digital reputation, everyone now has a digital stamp, and that's comprised of your digital footprint and also your digital shadow. Your digital footprint is anything that you upload about yourself, your brand, your organization, so you have control over that. But the second piece is the more important piece, and that's your shadow. That's what other people are posting about you, your organization, your brand online. So collectively, it's your digital footprint plus your digital shadow equals your digital stamp. 92% of kids under the age of 2 already have a digital stamp today. 25% of the babies that will be born tomorrow have a digital stamp today because parents get excited, they post sonograms, they post names online. So what it boils down to is that we need to produce our best digital stamp and then protect it. It's not about I'm going to just be off the grid, because then you leave it completely up to the shadow. So you want to produce the footprint that coincides with the shadow so that you have your best stamp. So produce and then protect. The biggest thing that people do not understand, that we see it every day, you pick up the paper, and I won't say a company for various reasons, plus it'll date our conversation here, but every day you pick it up, you realize they don't understand that integrity and reputation are now exactly the same thing. So it used to be there's two different words because they used to be two different things. Integrity is what you stood for behind closed doors, and reputation is what the public perceived you to be. Now with a fully transparent world, they're exactly one and the same. So we need to understand that integrity and reputation are the same, so we have to lead our life as if your mother's watching you.
Tell us a little bit about your acronym STAMP and what each element stands for.
So the acronym STAMP as it relates to digital leadership is I was at a conference speaking, and then the other speaker was Malcolm Gladwell, and he's written Outliers, a bunch of books. He's awesome, great writer, great guy. And everyone's read his book, Outliers, and everyone's read Jim Collins' Good to Great, and everyone's read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Those are kind of your business Bibles, for lack of a better term. And so my brain started functioning and saying, well, all those books were written before YouTube existed, before Facebook, before Instagram. So things have obviously changed when it comes to leadership. So what's still core, and 80% still the same, traditional leadership for the last hundreds of years, but what's different in a digital era when it comes to leadership? And when we did the research, we didn't know if it was going to be 20 habits, 3 habits. It turns out there's 5 core habits that all digital leaders practice, and it forms the acronym STAMP. It's simple, true, act, map, and people.
You have an interesting take on how much time people should be focusing on a daily basis on their social platforms. Tell us a little bit about that, about the platforms, the number of platforms, and like how you drive it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading a stat the other day that we'll spend 5 years of our lives on social media. 5 years of our life on social media. A common question I get from companies is, how often should I post on social media? And I say, well, you can post as much as you want, as long as there's a value to the end user. And if you think about email, it only becomes spam when it's not of value. So I go, anyone that tells you this is the set amount of posts you should do for the day, just don't listen to that. If you're providing value, you can post. Now, one thing I have is I talk about the 3-second rule. So you've got to ask yourself, if you have to think about it more than 3 seconds, it's not of value. So it has to be, everyone needs to know this. They have to know it. It's a no-brainer. Get it out there. Then that's the 3-second rule. If you have to think more than that, don't post it. Now, when we talk about posting it forward, I always implore people, I go, take the selfie and then turn it around, especially businesses. You want to highlight everybody else out there. It's not about you. It's about highlighting everybody else. So flip that selfie around. That's what we call posting it forward. So instead of paying it forward in the offline world, it's similar in the digital world, it's post it forward. So you want more followers, you want more engagement, highlight other people. And that's where I talk about, just carve out in your day 3 minutes to post it forward. Some days you're going to go 30, but just be as consistent as possible, because you want to network before you actually need the network. Most of us make the mistake as businesses or individuals that we only engage or network when we need a favor. And so most of the listening audience out there today, they've probably gotten a call in the last 3 months from someone they haven't heard from. You probably got a call in the last 3 months from somebody you haven't heard from in a while. And the whole time that small talk's starting for the 5 to 10 minutes, all you can think about is, what does this person want?
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, they do want something.
Yeah.
So the key is post it forward. The science, the neuroscience shows it makes you happier. It makes the recipient happier, obviously, because you're posting something nice about them. Let's say you just say on Twitter, #FF for Follow Friday, these 3 people. Or here's 4 amazing thought leaders. Or you go in and endorse someone on LinkedIn. Whatever your cup of tea is, whatever your social outlet is, just make a practice of doing that 3 minutes a day. Makes you happier, makes the recipient happier. Crazy enough, anyone that views that online, it makes them happier as well. So sometimes you can get customers, you can get better employees by doing that practice of posting it forward, and all of a sudden you start to realize over time, it's not why you're doing it, but over time you will benefit as an individual and as a business.
Gen Z, so we've seen a lot of the latest data on Gen Z. They now control up to, by certain measures, 150 billion globally. They're beginning to enter the workforce, the very oldest among them. They're very different from prior generations because they grew up entirely digital their whole lives. One of the seminal moments in their lives was actually the introduction of the iPhone in 2006. So as you consult for, very, very large and famous brands ranging from Nordstrom's to NASA, how do you advise them to think about this generation a little bit differently from a digital perspective?
I'll do an example, because I was just in a meeting recently in London. There's a big chocolate company. In everyone's Halloween basket, it's actually kind of intimidating because the people in the room have last names that are on the candy bar themselves. But in the course of that meeting, I unwrapped a bunch of their chocolate. And I go, when someone unwraps this, there's no use of the real estate on the inside. This is white. And you have some higher end chocolate, higher end dark chocolate. Most of the time, you don't even know your buyer, do you? Gen Z wants you to know them. They want relationships with the companies. And companies, obviously, it's in their best interest to have relationships with their customers. But historically, in that model, they didn't know who bought their candy or their chocolate. And so I go, look, you have a huge opportunity to now know your consumer and develop a relationship with them. And also start to think in a different mindset. You're not a chocolate company. Start thinking software as a service. So a lot of these folks want this higher end chocolate delivered seamlessly, painlessly, every month. So on the inside of that candy bar wrapper, there should be some kind of way, whether it's a code or whether it's just an easy way to scan, for that person to then sign up for monthly recurring chocolate. It's dangerous, but monthly recurring chocolate to arrive at your door. It's take advantage of the real estate you already have, but more importantly, Generation Z wants relationships with brands and want to feel a part of it. And so that's the way you develop those relationships, is start thinking differently.
Mm-hmm. So along those lines, the youngest generation sort of wants personalization, right? They want brands to know them. They want experiences that reflect that knowledge. How do you balance the personalization with some privacy elements as well?
And we talked about this a little bit earlier on, that if we think about integrity, reputation, I talk about privacy being dead. It's not something that we ask for. We just need to understand and step into that discomfort for a lot of us. The younger generations, they're more willing to give up privacy as long as they're getting something in return. Not all, like you can't just broad brushstroke every individual, but it's really about, are you providing value? And do I trust you? So when you think about the FANG companies, who's going to win? Ultimately, it's going to be the person that we trust, the company that we trust with our data. And so the winner is going to be who we trust. And so if they ever belie that trust, then that's going to cost them billions and billions of dollars.
And we're already seeing some of the ramifications of breaching that sort of trust duty that some of these brands have with us. I love one of your phrases, pioneers get pushback. Could you share some examples of how you've seen that play out in the digital space recently?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with my own personal history because I've had a lot of failures. And also, too, is you learn from those and understand, wait, people aren't seeing it the same way that you are. So this goes back several years ago, but one of them was that I wanted to do an avatar ad, basically when avatars first came out. But our CMO said, no, we don't want to do avatar because we've got this Olympic sponsorship. It needs to be an Olympian. And I go, oh, man, that stinks. But then I didn't give up. I go, wait, we're sponsoring this AVP volleyball tour. And this Misty May girl, she's going to be in the Olympics coming up first time. So let me just try to reach out to her. So I give her a call. And she goes, yeah, I'd love to be the voice of that avatar for free. I mean, we were already sponsoring them, but she just goes, it was just crazy. Then she went on and won the Olympic gold medal, then won, I think, the next 3. But that's kind of the pioneers get pushback, is that you need to kind of always push that proverbial envelope. I was just with someone at Pepsi. A lot of the listeners out there might be familiar with the Jeff Gordon advertisement where he's disguised. He goes in the car dealership. Jeff Gordon, one of the best race car drivers of all time, and then he's acting like he's buying a car. He's driving like crazy, gets millions and millions of views. But I talked to the person at Pepsi that was behind that, and they were told no 11 times. So it really is, pioneers do get pushback. You don't use old maps to get to new destinations. When you're getting that pushback, it's frustrating, really frustrating. But you need to understand that that's a signal you're actually pioneering. And when you should be nervous, I talk to companies about this all the time, is when there isn't that pushback. That means you're not pioneering enough. And it's not supposed to be easy. So anything worth doing isn't supposed to be easy. So just understand that pushback's there for a reason. It's a signal you're pioneering.
We talked a little bit about digital leadership, and I wanted to ask, what are maybe some of the top 3 things that the sort of key imperatives that digital leaders need to keep in mind today?
Number 1 is the digital transformation. One, we don't have a choice of whether we digitally transform. The choice is on how well we do it. And part of that is the understanding when we sat down with all these digital leaders, these digital tools aren't designed to replace face-to-face. They're designed when time and distance are an issue. So we need to understand that balance between the offline and the online. It's not to replace those physical relationships. It's when time and distance are an issue to go deeper on those relationships. So everything is relationship-based. So that's number 1. Number 2, and this dovetails a little bit in your question about when do we give up and when do we move forward, is don't overcomplicate it. All you have to be is a year ahead of your competition and never a year ahead of your market. So that's the balance. I just have to be 1 year ahead of the competition. That's it. And I definitely never want to be a year ahead of my market. So that's some of the top mistakes that we see, is they don't step into digital transformation enough, or they step way too far in. They forget the relationships, they get ahead of their market, and they lose everything. So it's really about understanding those concepts as much as possible. And don't overcomplicate this stuff. At the end of the day, a lot of it is rolling up the sleeves, and it's hard work. But the beautiful thing about hard work is it keeps the competition out. So it's funny, I always like to ask this question of the audience, and I always ask, what's the one word if someone were to Google your name right now? What's the word you want to show up 5 seconds from now, 5 years, 50 years, 500 years from today? Because this stuff's in digital ink. It's not in pencil. And so my word, which over time might evolve, but right now it's empower. I just want to entertain, educate, and empower people to their best life. That's it. So when the days get crazy, which they always do, it's always trying to get back to that center and go asking myself, what am I doing? And should I be doing this? And it doesn't relate to entertain, educate, and empower people to the best life. If not, why am I doing it? And it's a sunk cost, move on. And so that's what we've noticed a lot of the digital leaders are great at. I ask them, what are you better than most in? Because you're obviously very successful. And they go, I'm a little better than most at focusing. And I say, what's your biggest struggle? And they go, it's the other side of that coin. It's staying focused. So they're better than most. That's why they're very successful. But they also understand that's the constant struggle that they're dealing with.
That was Erik Qualman, renowned speaker and best-selling author.